cut off a wolf's head, and it still has the power to bite. I'm John Renton with the retro review of Princess Mononoke from Hayao Miyazaki, one of the most iconic animated filmmakers of all time. So rich as far as storytelling, so rich with his visuals, and the fact the guy is just plain flat out goddamn motherfucking nuts. But nuts in the most positive, respectful way possible. I mean, seriously, take a look at his list of films. Even though he has taken numerous breaks and decided even before The Boy and the Heron he was probably done, but then he did The Boy and the Heron, which admittedly was probably in the second tier of his films. Princess Mononoke from 1997, still, I would argue, is his best goddamn film. Now, you can argue in the comments with me, but this is my video, so shut your fucking face trying to change my opinion. But yes, Princess Mononoke. And honestly, I decided to rewatch this because 27 years later, it still holds up. This movie is fucking phenomenal. Rich, bleak, a great English voice cast, and, Japanese commentary. The original, the original language track or the English track, it doesn't matter. So great. And yes, again, very bleak. There are some violent moments in this, and Princess Mononoke is still so goddamn top tier. My favorite Miyazaki film. But that isn't the only film that he did. Obviously, the aforementioned The Boy and the Heron, Spirited Away, that I need to retro review at some point, Ponyo, and The Wind Rises, and Howl's Moving Castle. Two movies I also need to retro review, even though Howl's Moving Castle certainly was very disturbing. The Wind Rises, a little more subdued, kinda, maybe, a bit, but anyway, yes, Princess Mononoke. So, you have Ashitaka, who's a prince that defends his village and ends up with a curse on his arm. Actually, it's on this arm, if we're being, completely accurate. And the curse will kill him. This curse, by the way, was on a boar that looked like it was possessed by a bunch of blood sausages that turned it into an 8-legged freak. And it decided to attack because this curse is hate. It is hate personified. And basically, humans are destroying the forest, the animals, plundering the resources, and nature is goddamn pissed. So it's like if The Happening was actually directed by somebody that wasn't a fucking sea cucumber, at least the concept of it. And Ashitaka is voiced by Billy Crudup, who's an actor I totally goddamn forgot about. Check out his IMDb page. You may be surprised by what he was in. And he basically must leave. He must find a way to lift the curse. He runs into San, who, Princess Mononoke, the queen of the wolves, shall we say, or the princess of the wolves, as it were. Voiced in English, translation by Claire Danes. This is when Claire Danes was on the rise, just a year after Romeo and Juliet. Was it a year or 2 years? I think Romeo and Juliet came out in 96. And then she would go on to do other stuff. Some of her movie choices kind of made me question what the fuck is going on. Nevertheless, she seems to be doing well. That being said, Claire Danes isn't the only big name voice actor here. You have Billy Bob Thornton as Jigo. You have Lady Eboshi, who's really kind of a super bitch, if we're being perfectly honest, at least for most of the film, voiced by the incredibly still gorgeous Minnie Driver. And you have John DiMaggio. Yeah, that guy. You also have Jada Pinkett Smith, back when, her career actually was better than whatever her persona was off camera, where she proves to just be a raging, egotistical bitch. You have Gillian Anderson, still would, don't know who wouldn't, Keith David, and Tara Strong. Tara Strong, by the way, who is, I believe, 51 at this point and does not look it at all. So yes, Ashitaka takes his journey along with his elk friend, Yakul. Yakul's a great character and never speaks at all. Unless you take a lot of acid. And I would not recommend, I wouldn't recommend taking drugs anyway. I would not recommend taking acid before watching this, because you might be freaked the fuck out by some of this stuff. So yes, the great opening chasing. I'm not really going to go blow by blow with some of this stuff. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite scenes, because that's kind of the overriding deal. Also, Lady Eboshi, who leads Irontown, basically wants to kill the spirit of the forest, and Jigo wants to cut off its head and deliver it to the Emperor, because apparently the head of the spirit of the forest can grant eternal life. All that stuff's kind of thrown at us. I don't know, I wouldn't want to disturb the balance of the forest and the balance of nature like that and possibly unleash an apocalypse, but I'm built different. So we have Ashitaka as our main hero, as opposed to our sub-hero, which implies the existence of a dom hero. So, it's actually a pretty good chase scene where he's trying to get rid of the boar, the cursed boar, that ends up gripping onto his arm, the blood sausage tentacles, as I call them. And now they basically say, it's not that we don't appreciate you, but you must find a way to lift this curse. His sister Kara hands him a little dagger that she made. It was a glass dagger. And that is going to be something that's going to be a good luck charm that's going to carry him on. So, yeah, curse is pretty goddamn legit. It does cause him to have violent outbursts, like when he tries to stop some samurai thugs. He uses an arrow that chops off a guy's arms, and then when other guys are pursuing him, this is while he's riding Yakul, the giant elk antelope thing, he ends up shooting another arrow and chopping off a guy's head. That's a really good scene. This movie is violent. Very violent. Not as violent as Perfect Blue, which is another retro review I will be doing at some point. Yeah, Jigo shows up and kind of, latches onto him briefly, explains all this stuff about the spirit of the forest off in the west and all this, but it turns out he has his own ulterior motives, that is. Lady Eboshi, a very vile villain, if we're being perfectly honest, has built Irontown from the ground up. Appreciates the women more than the men. Of course, when it comes to iron, he who smelt it, dealt it, couldn't resist. And he runs into San, who tries to basically kill Lady Eboshi, because Irontown, by the way, there's this giant cliff or this, ravine that goes up like this, and there's all these spikes. And somehow these wolves are able to get through all that and get to Irontown. But before that, there's this great scene on this cliff where the wolf mother, Moro, basically sends a bunch of guys down the goddamn cliff but gets shot. And that actually ties back to the boar from before, beef boar, as it were. I should have workshopped that. There's a piece of iron that basically ended up cursing because it inflicted pain, anger, frustration, and suffering, and that basically led to the curse being born. Essentially, kinda. Because, you take somebody's livelihood away and you basically interrupt their way of life to a point, they're going to turn to hate and suffering and rage. At least that's the interpretation I got from it. San basically tries to kill Lady Eboshi, and that doesn't necessarily work. It kind of just goes a bit up in smoke. Even though she gets close, you have Ashitaka trying to stop this from happening because he just wants balance. He wants to lift the curse, and he understands why San's upset, but also that Eboshi may not be a good person, but isn't the actual enemy. Also, there's those weird, white creatures with the soulless eyes that the ones that people see that are really creeped out by as the Kodama. Yeah, those dead-eye fucks really scared me. They still scare me. They're just weird. Go into the giant tree. This is after all this stuff happens on the cliff, and basically he ends up seeing the spirit of the forest sometime during that. Spirit of the forest is this giant gelatinous creature that's walking around, and then turns into some kind of kabuki mask wearing multi-horned deer thing. Miyazaki again must have just been on copious amounts of drugs in his youth. That or he just has a wild imagination influenced by drugs. So, Ashitaka basically is a hit with the ladies at Irontown. And then the thing happens where San tries to do her attack. They find out that Eboshi is basically the leader, or he finds that out. She is a strong leader, shall we say. Some of the people don't trust him in the town. The curse really is mad at Lady Eboshi. He can't control it. Now, that does kind of get forgotten about a little bit later on, but initially, the curse, is ready and bound, determined to take out the one that caused all this stuff, because that boar from before ended up basically getting shot by Lady Eboshi, and now the revenge must be sought. So, Eboshi does utter the iconic line, cut off a wolf's head, it still has the power to bite, and then from there, we get Ashitaka going off from Irontown, and then he really does try to do right by San, but as he's leaving, he gets shot through the goddamn chest. But because the curse is basically pushing him, he's able to push this gate open, and it normally takes 10 men to, open, because apparently they're all Don Knotts clones. Only diehard RiffTrax fans will get that. And Ashitaka basically is fucked. He's dying, this is terrible, and then these weird creatures, these black creatures with these red eyes, are showing up and everything, and these red rats and all this stuff, and it's the ape tribe. Weird apes. Very weird apes. Very ghost-like apes, almost. This is our forest. Give us the human. We will eat the human, and we will get his strength. That is not how that works, but whatever. They're pissed off that their forest is getting destroyed. And then the wolves are like, nope, we're not going to do that. Yakul basically is free to do what he wants any old time, but stays by his side, even though San is like, hey, you can go, you can do this. He gets healed in the water, but the curse doesn't get healed. Giant spirit of the forest. That's the gelatinous deer creature. Oh, Japan. And basically, it turns out that Jigo, being all evil and everything, he, is leading some men to basically cut off the head of this forest god. And I did find it funny how the character of Yakul actually could tell a lot through just inflections and expressions and everything, proving how great Miyazaki is as a storyteller and how great the animation was in general and how painstaking the process must be, because this shit still holds up. I mean, I know that other stuff, even older, holds up. There's some of that stuff in the 90s that just doesn't, as far as animation, as far as whatever, but pouring the passion and money into this, and this thing made like $170 million U.S. gross world, or $170 million in U.S. dollars worldwide, which would be almost double that, I think, in today's money, roughly. And then she, being San, is trying to heal him, feeds him beef jerky, or forest jerky, baby bird style, for some reason. So romance naturally blossoms. Moro, the mother wolf, basically accepts, well, I've been shot, because she got shot during that cliff thing, so I'm accepting my death. And then there's all these boars. There's this Akoto, giant boar, white creature that's blind and very old, almost as though Zoe Stark. Only wrestling fans will get that one. There's also this guy, Lord Asano, that wants to make a deal with Irontown. And by make a deal, I mean take over it. And yeah, there's this pact made between Eboshi and Jigo. Eboshi takes off, leaves the women to defend Irontown. That ends up kind of going tits up, not because they're women, just because there's more people that Lord Asano has, while she takes some of the men. And yeah, basically they're going to try to lure in the, try to lure the forest spirit out. Now, Sam was raised by Moro. Moro was like, hey, she's healed you, that's fine, but you can't come back or you're going to die. And one of my favorite scenes, actually, actually a collection of scenes, is when the boars are about to attack. Akoto's like, hey, we're going to send out the boars to attack. And the men are pretty goddamn pissed because Ashitaka shows up and they said, yeah, by the way, we didn't realize there were mines and there were a whole bunch of other things going on. And we got blown the fuck up and everything. And we got betrayed. We got betrayed by somebody. My God, this is terrible. Yakul, by the way, does get shot at one point and somehow is fine. Somehow is able to just go up a cliff. Japan. And the power of elk antelope creatures. So, yeah, the boars are all laid out. There's this explosion, all these explosions, all this flashback stuff going on. And yeah, it's pretty violent. Humans are killed, boars are killed. Oh, yes, and Akoto is suddenly cursed by the fact that he is bleeding, he is upset, and he is angry. He is very angry. So the rage takes over. The curse takes over. And there are also boars that just snail on the ground because they're humans. They're obviously Jigo's group. And that is Jigo, by the way. He is really bound and determined to get the head of this particular, this particular forest god, or spirit of the forest, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, Okoto is blind and confused and smells the boar's blood and says, well, my soldiers will guide or go with me. And San's like, you idiot, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the hell's going on here? This is ridiculous. So, yeah, Ashitaka basically is trying to make peace between the wolves, or the humans, and nature. But Eboshi will have none of it. She says, I'm going to shoot this thing. And she does. And then it starts to sink, but then it's fine. Because it's a fucking god, and it takes more than one bullet. And these soldiers suck, by the way, because they're terrible. Terrible. My god. This is just the worst. They were able to skin these boars, hide in there, and have the foresight to cover themselves in boar's blood so they wouldn't be detectable. And yet they're doing... They're terrible, by the way. Again, terrible soldiers. So, yeah, the curse basically consumes San. Okoto is like, the old white board and everything. He's all... And Moro's basically gets San, and that's pretty much it. Like, pretty much it. I'm shot and I'm dead, basically. And Ashitaka must save her, takes her in the water, washes away the stuff, and yeah, Koto's dead. Moro ends up biting off the arm of Eboshi after basically the god gets shot again, which is this is despite the fact that plants start to grow out of the gun at one point, because yeah, the forest basically decided Ashitaka's at least doing enough good shit, so let's give him the ability to throw a knife and have some leaves grow out of the thing, because, oh, Japan. And, yeah, so that was kind of funny that the wolf's head did have, you cut off a wolf's head, still has power to bite. That comes back to literally bite Eboshi in the arm. And San is pissed. But, yeah, basically the idea is, we got to band together. Oh, yes, and in the interim, Jigo has basically banded some guys together, gotten the head, and yeah, they're going to escape. Except for the fact that now this forest god basically has become the incarnation of evil and is destroying anything it touches, whether it's animal, vegetable, or mineral. Doesn't matter. And also humans. You die. You die instantly. You don't just get cursed. You fucking die. So, yeah, Ashitaka wants there to be peace. He just wants there to be peace. Get everybody out of Irontown. Get in the water. It'll slow it down somehow. And this thing has its tendrils all over. This thing is bigger than the goddamn world. It's like the Cloverfield monster at the end of the Cloverfield paradox, where the ship goes down, and then the creature just pokes its head out of the clouds. Meaning that creature must be like 2 million feet tall. Maybe not that tall, but still. And we're all surrounded. It's all fucked. And yeah, you can't get to the Emperor because you're going to be surrounded. And Jigo realizes the Jigo is up. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And Ashitaka and San give the head back to the god. So, yeah, there you go. And then the god gets its head back, falls over Irontown. Everything becomes forested again. And the curse is lifted. So, San's not infected, because she was badly infected. And Ashitaka's not infected. So, everything's good. He's going to help them rebuild Irontown instead of going back to his village to tell them that he's still alive. And San's going to live with the wolves. And that's it. That is it. That is Princess Mononoke in a nutshell. Really iconic imagery. Great stuff. It flies by just over 2 hours. Miyazaki's best film, in my opinion. Agree, disagree what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.